The stars had never looked so close. Sam Porter stood at the observation deck of the exploration vessel called the Horizon, watching the swirl of colors outside the ship. They had been traveling faster than light for 3 weeks now. And he still could not believe it was real. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. Now, at last, they were on their way to meet the galaxy. Sam was a tall man with gray at his temples and steady hands. He had spent 20 years in space, but nothing had prepared him for this mission. Earth had detected signals from distant civilizations for decades. Scientists had studied them, decoded them, and finally built a ship fast enough to answer them. Sam had been chosen to lead the first diplomatic team beyond the solar system. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Amy Dawson walking toward him. She was the ship's xenolinguist, an expert in alien languages. She was young, barely 30, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "We're almost there," she said. "Ben says we'll arrive at the station in 6 hours." Sam nodded. Ben Holt was their chief science officer, a quiet man who preferred machines to people. He had been working without rest since they left Earth, preparing the ship's systems for whatever they might find. "Are you nervous?" Sam asked. Amy smiled, terrified, but in a good way. Sam understood what she meant. Fear and wonder mixed together in his chest like a storm. They were about to meet beings who had traveled the stars for millions of years, beings who had built civilizations older than the dinosaurs. What would they think of humanity? Would they welcome them? Or would they see them as children playing with toys they did not understand? 6 hours later, they found out. The Galactic Assembly Station was enormous. It orbited a neutron star, a dead sun that spun so fast, it made the space around it shimmer. The station itself was a ring of metal and crystal, large enough to hold 100 cities. Ships of every shape and size moved around it like fish around a reef. Sam brought the Horizon to the docking port that had been assigned to them. His heart was pounding as the airlock opened, and he stepped into the station for the first time. The air smelled strange, like flowers and lightning mixed together. The corridor was wide and curved, made of a smooth material that glowed with soft light. And everywhere Sam looked, he saw aliens. There were beings made of gas, floating in transparent suits. There were creatures with 6 legs and eyes that covered their entire heads. There were things that looked like walking trees, and things that looked like nothing Sam had ever imagined, and all of them stopped to stare at the humans as they walked past. A guide met them at the end of the corridor. It was a small creature with blue skin and 4 arms. It introduced itself as Delegate Vorn, and explained that it would help the humans navigate the station. "The assembly welcomes you," Vorn said in perfect English. The translator device on its chest hummed as it spoke. "Over 400 species gather here to trade knowledge and resources. We are pleased to add humanity to our number." Sam felt a rush of relief. They were welcome, they had a place here. But then something changed. As they walked through the station's central plaza, a hush fell over the crowd. Sam saw aliens moving aside, clearing a path. And through that path walked a being unlike any other. It was tall, perhaps 8 feet, and made entirely of crystal. Blue and purple light pulsed inside its body like a heartbeat. Its face had no features Sam could recognize, but somehow he knew it was looking at him. He could feel its attention like a weight on his skin. "The Varanthi," Vorn whispered. "The oldest species in the galaxy. They founded the assembly 3 billion years ago." Sam stepped forward. "Hello," he said. "I am Commander Sam Porter of Earth. We come in peace and friendship." The Varanthi said nothing. It stood perfectly still, its light flickering inside its crystal body. The silence stretched on for 10 seconds. Then 20. Finally, it spoke. Its voice was like glass breaking, sharp and cold. "We will not share space with them." And then it turned and walked away. Sam stood frozen, trying to understand what had just happened. Around him, the aliens began to whisper. He saw shock on some faces, fear on others. "What did I do wrong?" he asked Vorn. The small creature looked troubled. "You did nothing wrong, Commander. But the Varanthi have never rejected a species before. Never in all the ages of the assembly. Quote, Amy grabbed Sam's arm. What does this mean? Vorn shook its head. I do not know. The Varanthi are the founders of our civilization. They are peacekeepers and teachers. They welcome all species, even those who have done terrible things. They believe in redemption and growth. It paused. For them to reject humanity without explanation is unprecedented. Sam watched the crystal being disappear into the crowd. His mind was racing. What did the Varanthi see when they looked at humans? What could possibly make them turn away? I need to speak with them, he said. I need answers. But the answers did not come. Over the next few days, Sam tried everything. He sent messages to the Varanthi embassy. He requested meetings through official channels. He even tried to approach Varanthi individuals on the station. Every time, the result was the same. Silence. Avoidance. Rejection. The other species were kind to humanity. They shared technology and knowledge. They invited Sam and his crew to dinners and ceremonies. But whenever the Varanthi were mentioned, they became quiet and uncomfortable. No one knows why they rejected you, one alien told Amy. The Varanthi keep their own counsel. They see things the rest of us cannot. Perhaps they have their reasons. But what reasons? Amy demanded. What is wrong with humanity? The alien had no answer. On the 10th day, Sam stood alone at the observation deck, staring out at the neutron star. His mission had been a success in many ways. Humanity had made friends among the stars, but the mystery of the Varanthi haunted him. What did they know? What were they afraid of? And what did their warning mean for the future of the human race? Sam did not know. But he was determined to find out. 3 months passed on the station. Amy Dawson had learned more about alien cultures than any human in history. She spent her days talking to representatives from dozens of species, recording their languages, and studying their customs. The work was exciting, but something always nagged at the back of her mind. The Varanthi. No matter how many friends humanity made, the oldest species in the galaxy still refused to acknowledge them. Their ships had left the station entirely. Their embassy remained dark and empty. It was as if they wanted nothing to do with humans at all. Ben Holt worked in his laboratory, studying the technologies that friendly species shared with them. He had learned more about physics in 3 months than Earth scientists had discovered in 100 years. But even he noticed the strange looks some aliens gave them when they thought the humans were not watching. They pity us, Ben told Sam one evening. I can see it in their eyes. They think something bad is going to happen to us. Sam shook his head. Then why won't anyone tell us what it is? No one knew. Or if they did, they were too afraid to say. The answer came on a quiet night when Amy could not sleep. She had been walking through the lower decks of the station. The areas where cargo was stored, and few visitors went. The corridors were darker here, lit only by dim emergency lights. She liked the silence. It helped her think. She turned a corner and stopped. A Varanthi stood in front of her. Amy's heart jumped. She had never been this close to one of them before. The being was smaller than the ambassador she had seen on the first day, its crystal body glowing with a softer light. It seemed young somehow, though she did not know how she could tell. Please do not be afraid, the Varanthi said. Its voice was gentler than she expected, like wind chimes in a soft breeze. My name is Corveth. I have been watching you. Amy swallowed her fear. Why? Because I am curious about your kind. The elders of my people have forbidden contact with humans, but I am young and foolish. The light inside Corveth flickered, and Amy thought it might be the Varanthi way of smiling. I want to understand why we fear you. Amy took a step forward. Then tell me. Please. We have done nothing wrong. Why do your people hate us? On me. 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 On. Corveth was silent for a long moment. Then it moved closer, and Amy could feel the strange energy that pulsed inside its crystal body. My people do not hate you, Corveth said. We are terrified of you. And we have been terrified for 3 billion years. Amy listened as Corveth began to explain. The Varanthi were different from other species, Corveth told her. They could see things that others could not. When they looked at a living being, they did not see just flesh and bone. They saw the pattern of that being, the unique thread it wove into the fabric of existence itself. Every species has a signature, Corveth said. A song that belongs only to them. When we look at other races, we see these songs. They are beautiful. They are unique. They tell us who a species truly is. And when you look at humans, Amy asked, Corveth's light dimmed. The young Varanthi seemed to shrink, and Amy realized it was afraid. When we look at humans, we see no signature. Where your pattern should be, there is only darkness. And inside that darkness, something moves. Something watches. Something waits. Amy felt cold. I don't understand. Corveth reached out one crystalline limb and touched Amy's hand. The touch was cool and smooth, like polished glass. In the beginning, before the stars were born, there were beings of pure thought. We call them the architects. They shaped reality itself. They built the laws of physics. They created the foundations of everything that exists. What happened to them? The universe changed. Matter formed. Energy cooled. The architects could not survive in the new reality. Most of them died. But some found ways to hide. To sleep. To wait. Amy's mouth was dry. Are you saying one of these architects is inside humans? Corveth nodded slowly. Our oldest memories tell of this. When the universe was young, one architect found a small, warm world circling an ordinary star. It was dying, fading, losing itself. So it did something desperate. It bonded itself to the life on that world. It wove itself into the very essence of every creature that would ever be born there. Earth, Amy whispered. Your world. Your species. The architect is inside you, Amy Dawson. Inside every human who has ever lived. It sleeps inside your cells. Inside your thoughts. Inside your dreams. Amy pulled her hand back. Her mind was spinning. This could not be true. It was impossible. And yet she could see the fear in Corveth's glowing body. And she knew the young Varanthi believed every word. What does it want? She asked. We do not know. That is what terrifies us. An architect is not like you or me. It thinks in ways we cannot understand. It wants things we cannot imagine. For 3 billion years, my people have watched your world from afar, waiting to see what the architect would do. And now you have come to the stars. Amy thought of Earth. She thought of everyone she had ever known, everyone she had ever loved. Were they all carrying something ancient inside them? Something that had existed before time itself? What happens now? She asked. Corveth stepped back. I do not know, but I wanted you to understand why my people fear you. It is not hatred. It is not cruelty. It is the terror of the unknown. We do not know if the architect is your friend or your master. We do not know if it will save you or destroy you. We only know that something older than the stars lives inside humanity, and we have no idea what it will become. The young Varanthi turned to leave, then paused. Be careful, Amy Dawson. Learn what you can. Perhaps you will discover something my people never could. Perhaps humans will be the first to understand the thing that lives within them. And then Corveth was gone, leaving Amy alone in the darkness with questions that shook her to her soul. She stood there for a long time, thinking about everything she had been told. Then she turned and walked back toward the crew quarters. She had to tell Sam. She had to tell Ben. Humanity needed to know the truth about itself. Sam did not want to believe it. He sat in the small meeting room on the horizon, listening to Amy tell her story. His face was hard, and his jaw was tight. When she finished speaking, he shook his head. An ancient god living inside our DNA? That sounds like a myth. A ghost story. Amy leaned forward. I know how it sounds. But Corvith was terrified. Sam, the Varanthi have been watching Earth for 3 billion years. They founded the entire galactic civilization, and they are afraid of us. Don't you think we should at least investigate? Ben Holt spoke from the corner of the room. He had been quiet during Amy's story, his mind working through the implications. There might be a way to test this, he said slowly. If there really is something unusual in human DNA, we should be able to find it. Sam turned to him. How? The Varanthi have perception technology. They use it to see these patterns Corveth talked about. If we can get access to that technology, we could analyze human genetic samples and see if anything unusual shows up. It took 2 weeks to arrange it. Corveth helped them in secret, risking punishment from the Varanthi elders. The young alien brought them a small device, a crystal sphere that glowed with soft inner light. It was a perception scanner, one of the most sacred tools of the Varanthi people. Be careful with it, Corveth warned. If my elders discover what I have done, I will face severe consequences. But I need to know the truth as much as you do. Ben set up the scanner in his laboratory. He took blood samples from Sam, Amy, and himself. Then he placed the first sample under the scanner and activated it. The room filled with light. Images appeared in the air around them, holographic projections of human DNA. But this was different from anything they had seen on Earth. The scanner showed not just the physical structure of the genes, but something else, something deeper. There, Ben whispered, pointing to a section of the projection. Do you see that? Amy leaned closer. There were patterns in the DNA that she had never noticed before. Complex shapes that twisted and folded in ways that seemed impossible. They pulsed with a faint glow, almost like they were alive. What is that? Sam asked. Ben's fingers moved over his controls, zooming in on the strange patterns. On Earth, scientists called this junk DNA. Sequences that don't seem to serve any biological purpose. They make up about 98% of our genetic code. He paused, his face pale. But they're not junk. Look at this. The projection shifted, showing the patterns from a different angle. Now, Amy could see that they were connected, forming a vast network that spread through every strand of human DNA. It's a language, Ben said. A code written into our very cells. And when I apply the Varanthi perception filter, he pressed a button. The room changed. The patterns in the DNA began to move. They twisted and shifted, forming shapes that hurt Amy's eyes to look at. She saw geometry that should not exist. Angles that led to nowhere and everywhere at once. And in the center of it all, she saw something vast and dark and impossibly old. It was watching them. Amy stumbled backward, gasping. Sam grabbed her arm to steady her. Ben shut off the scanner, and the images disappeared. For a long moment, no one spoke. It's real, Sam finally said. His voice was hollow. Ben sat down heavily, his legs weak. Not just inside us, it is us. Those patterns are in every cell of our bodies. Every human who has ever lived has carried them. The architect is woven into the very foundation of what we are. Amy thought about human history. She thought about the first cave paintings, the first songs, the first stories told around fires in the darkness. She thought about every scientist who had ever wondered about the stars. Every artist who had ever tried to capture beauty. Every parent who had ever loved a child. What is it doing? She asked. Ben pulled up more data on his screens. I think it's learning. The patterns respond to brain activity. When humans think, when we feel, when we create, the patterns change. They grow. They become more complex. Learning what? Everything. What it means to be alive. What it means to love and hope and fear. What it means to be human. Ben turned to face them, his eyes wide. The architect was dying when it bonded with life on Earth. It was a being of pure thought, lost in a universe of matter it couldn't understand, so it attached itself to us. It's been experiencing existence through human eyes for 3 billion years. Sam ran his hand through his hair. So, it's been watching us, using us. Maybe, Amy said slowly. Or maybe it's been growing with us. changing because of us. She thought of Corveth's words. The Varanthi are afraid because they don't know what it wants. But what if it doesn't want anything bad? What if it's become something different from what it used to be? Sam shook his head. That's a big assumption to make about something older than the stars. I know. But think about it. If the architect wanted to hurt us, it could have done it millions of years ago. Instead, it's been silent, hidden, just watching and learning. Ben brought up another display. There's something else. The patterns have been growing more active over the last 100 years. Much more active. It's like something is building toward a moment. What kind of moment? Sam asked. I don't know. An awakening, maybe. A transformation. Ben looked at his crewmates. Fear and wonder mixed in his eyes. Whatever is inside humanity, I think it's almost ready to wake up. The three of them sat in silence, thinking about what this meant. Earth had no idea what was coming. 8 billion people going about their lives, completely unaware of the ancient power sleeping in their cells. Sam stood up. We need to keep this quiet for now. If we tell everyone at once, there will be panic. We need more information first. Amy nodded. I'll keep working with Corveth. Maybe there are records, histories that can tell us more about what the architect really is. And I'll study the DNA patterns, Ben said. If something is about to happen, we need to understand it before it happens. They had no idea how little time they had left. The Varanthi returned without warning. One moment, the space around Earth was empty. The next moment, 1,000 ships appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were ancient vessels made of living crystal, each one glowing with terrible power. They surrounded the planet like a cage. On the Galactic Assembly Station, alarms screamed. Sam ran to the communication center, his heart pounding. The screens showed images of the Varanthi fleet, and behind them, the small blue dot of Earth. They're targeting every major city, Ben reported, his voice shaking. Their weapons are charging. Sam, those weapons are designed to destroy organic matter at the genetic level. They're going to erase humanity from existence. A message came through from the Varanthi High Council. The voice that spoke was cold and final. To all species of the Galactic Assembly, we have monitored the architect within humanity for 3 billion years. Our sensors now indicate that the awakening is imminent. If the architect returns to full consciousness, it will pose a threat to all existence. We have no choice but to eliminate the host species before the process is complete. We regret this necessity. Do not interfere. Do not interfere. Sam slammed his fist against the console. They're going to kill everyone on Earth. 8 billion people. Amy was already reaching out to their allies. The other species had been kind to humanity. But would they stand against the founders of their civilization? Would they risk everything for a species they had known for only a few months? Some of them answered yes. Ships from a dozen worlds began to move toward Earth, ready to stand between humanity and destruction. But they were too few, too weak against the ancient power of the Varanthi fleet. We need more time, Amy said desperately. We need to understand what's happening before they destroy us. On Earth, something had already begun. Kate Miller was a schoolteacher in a small town in Nebraska. She was 42 years old, with kind eyes and a warm smile. She had spent her life helping children learn to read and dream and believe in themselves. She had never thought of herself as special. That morning, an earthquake struck without warning. Kate was in her classroom when the ground began to shake. She heard screaming as the ceiling cracked above her. Chunks of concrete fell, and she threw herself over her students, trying to protect them with her body. When the shaking stopped, she looked up. The building had collapsed around them. Her students were trapped, crying in the darkness. Heavy beams and broken stone blocked every exit. There was no way out. Kate pushed against the debris, but it was too heavy. She screamed for help, but no one could hear her. Her students were hurt and scared, and there was nothing she could do. Except there was. Something stirred inside her. Something that had been sleeping for billions of years. Kate felt warmth spread through her body. She felt strength she had never known, filling her muscles and bones. And she felt a presence, vast and gentle, that seemed to wrap around her mind like a comforting hand. She did not understand what was happening. But she knew, somehow, that she was not alone. That she had never been alone. Kate reached out her hands, and light poured from her fingertips. The concrete above her rose into the air. 10 tons of broken building lifted like leaves in the wind. Her students stared up in shock as the debris floated away, clearing a path to safety. Kate's eyes glowed with starlight. Her voice echoed with 1,000 harmonies when she spoke. Go, run, I will protect you. The children ran. Kate stood in the ruins, feeling power flow through her like a river. She could feel everything now. She could feel the planet beneath her feet, the air around her, the hearts of every human on Earth, and she could feel the thing that had awakened inside her. It was not evil. It was not a monster. It was simply vast and old and full of wonder. What are you? She whispered. The answer came not in words, but in feelings. Images flooded her mind. She saw the birth of the universe, the death of impossible beings, the long, slow journey of life on Earth. She saw every human who had ever lived, their joys and sorrows, their triumphs and failures. She saw herself through the eyes of something that had watched over humanity since the first cell divided in the ancient oceans. We are not separate, she heard herself say. But the voice was hers, and not hers at the same time. We never were. Across the planet, other people began to change. A doctor in Tokyo felt knowledge pour into his mind, showing him how to heal wounds that had been beyond medicine. An engineer in Brazil suddenly understood physics that Earth scientists had not yet discovered. A child in Egypt dreamed of impossible worlds, and when she woke up, she could shape light with her thoughts. The architect was awakening. But it was not taking over humanity. It was becoming one with them. Every person felt it differently. Some were frightened at first, some wept with joy. Some simply stood in wonder as they realized they were connected to something greater than themselves. The Varanthi sensors detected the change. On their flagship, the High Council watched in horror as human after human began to glow with ancient power. It has begun, the eldest Varanthi said. The architect awakens. We must fire now, before it reaches full strength. The weapons charged. 1,000 ships prepared to erase humanity from existence. But Kate Miller, standing in the ruins of her school, looked up at the sky. She could see the Varanthi fleet, even from Earth's surface. She could feel their fear and their determination, and she could feel the power inside her, power that had been sleeping since before the stars were born. No, she said, and her voice carried across space itself. The Varanthi weapons flickered, their ships trembled. Something was interfering with their systems, something that operated on a level they had never encountered. Kate closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. She touched every human on Earth, felt their confusion and their fear and their hope, and she spoke to them, not with words, but with pure feeling. Don't be afraid. We are becoming something new, something beautiful, something that will change the universe forever. And humanity began to understand. The Varanthi fleet opened fire. Beams of pure destruction lanced down toward Earth. Weapons designed to unravel the very fabric of organic life. Each shot carried enough power to destroy a continent. Together, they could have burned the planet to ash. But the beams never reached the surface. A shield of light appeared around Earth, shimmering with colors that had no names. The Varanthi weapons struck the shield and dissolved like rain against glass. Shot after shot came down, and each one was absorbed harmlessly. On the Varanthi flagship, the High Council stared at their screens in disbelief. Impossible, the eldest said. No technology can withstand our weapons. Nothing has been able to stop us for 3 billion years. But this was not technology. This was something far older. Kate Miller stood at the center of a network that spanned the entire planet. She was connected to every human being on Earth, their minds and hearts linked through the power of the architect. Together, they had raised the shield. Together, they were protecting their world. Kate felt the fear of the Varanthi. She felt their confusion and their ancient terror. They had been preparing for this moment for billions of years, expecting a monster to emerge from humanity. They expected destruction and chaos, and the end of everything they had built. Instead, they found something they never expected: love. The architect spoke through Kate, and its voice echoed across space to reach every ship in the Varanthi fleet. It was not a voice of anger or conquest. It was gentle, almost sad, filled with the wisdom of ages beyond counting. You remember what I was, but you do not see what I have become. The Varanthi listened, their crystal bodies flickering with uncertainty. 3 billion years ago, I was dying. I was chaos, and hunger, and void. A being of pure thought lost in a universe I could not understand. I should have faded into nothing. But I found them. Images appeared in the minds of every Varanthi, showing them Earth as it had been in the beginning. A young world covered in shallow seas, where the first simple life was just starting to form. I wove myself into their existence. I became part of every creature that would ever live on that world. At first, I only wanted to survive. But as the ages passed, something changed. I did not simply watch them. I felt what they felt. I lived what they lived. The images changed, showing the long history of life on Earth, the rise of fish and reptiles and mammals. The first humans standing upright, looking up at the stars with wonder in their eyes. I felt their first love. I felt their first loss. I felt the joy of a mother holding her child, and the sorrow of a friend saying goodbye. I felt courage, and kindness, and sacrifice. I learned what it means to be small and fragile, and still fight for something greater than yourself. Kate's eyes were streaming with tears, but she was smiling. The architect was not just speaking to the Varanthi, it was speaking to her, to every human, telling them the truth of what they had always carried inside. I gave them my strength. They gave me something greater. They gave me purpose. They taught me to hope. They taught me to love. The Varanthi weapons fell silent. The fleet drifted in space, its crews frozen by what they were hearing. I am no longer the architect of old. I am humanity, and humanity is me. We are something new. Something that has never existed before. And we do not wish you harm. The eldest Varanthi stepped forward on the bridge of the flagship. Its crystal body shook with emotions it had not felt in millions of years. How can we trust you? It asked. How can we know you will not destroy, as you once might have? Kate answered, but not alone. Every human voice joined with hers, billions of people speaking as one across the distance of space. Because we are not just one being anymore. We are 8 billion souls who have chosen compassion over cruelty, hope over fear, connection over isolation. The architect has changed because we changed it. We grew together, and together, we choose peace. Sam Porter stood on the bridge of the horizon, listening to the voice of his species united. He felt the warmth of the architect inside him, a gentle presence that had always been there, waiting for this moment. He understood now why he had always felt drawn to the stars. It was not just his dream. It was the dream of something ancient, longing to show its children the wonders of the universe. He stepped forward and opened a channel to the Varanthi fleet. Stand down, he said. His voice was calm and confident. We are not your enemy. We are your neighbors. And I think we have a lot to learn from each other. For a long moment, nothing happened. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Then the eldest Varanthi gave an order. The weapons powered down. The fleet withdrew from attack formation. We have been afraid for so long, the elder said. Its voice was soft, almost fragile. We watched and waited, expecting disaster. We never imagined this outcome. We never imagined that the architect could become something beautiful. It paused. We were wrong. For the first time in 3 billion years, the Varanthi admit that we were wrong. Only in part. 3 lines of wrong, for the Varanthi admit that we were wrong. On Earth, people cheered. They laughed and cried and held each other, feeling the presence of the architect inside them like a warm embrace. They were still human. They still had their fears and flaws and struggles. But now, they knew they were also part of something greater, something that would guide them and protect them and help them become the best version of themselves. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Humanity officially joined the Galactic Assembly, not as the youngest species, but as something unprecedented. The children of an architect, carriers of cosmic fire, dreamers who had taught a god to dream. The Varanthi became humanity's greatest allies. The ancient beings shared their wisdom and their knowledge, and in return, humans showed them something they had forgotten long ago: how to feel wonder at the simple miracle of being alive. Sam Porter led the first diplomatic mission to the Varanthi homeworld, a planet made entirely of crystal that sang with harmonies older than the sun. He stood on its surface and looked up at unfamiliar stars, feeling the presence of the architect humming in his veins. "What happens now?" Amy asked, standing beside him. Sam smiled. "Everything. We explore, we learn, we grow, we make the universe a little better than we found it." He thought of Kate Miller, the schoolteacher from Nebraska, who had become the first voice of a new humanity. He thought of the billions of people back on Earth, each one carrying a spark of ancient power. He thought of all the species waiting among the stars, ready to meet a people who had been shaped by something beyond imagination. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not through conquest or technology, but through love. The universe would never be the same, and somewhere, deep inside every human heart, the architect smiled.